Greetings, friends and family of Brian and Chantelle. We're here to report the truth.
Here's an absolute fact, perhaps several of them, with regards to Brian and Chantelle's getting together.
I was Chantelle's first lover, and also when I met Brian at the Sonora church, the moment I met him, I was like, he's my brother-in-law. Like, it was just obvious.
When I met Brian, it was like, this is obviously the man that the Lord has intended for Chantelle. It was just such an uncanny feeling, and I can't even explain it.
I found out we have the same birthdays. I found out what his was. I can't remember what our birthday is. I'll have to ask him what it is.
I actually first met you when we were on a mission trip together. We went on an airplane together and went to Tonga. That is so remarkable all these years later to think of that. But when we went to PUC and we specifically chose you to come to Sonora, was the best decision that we ever made. God really led in that, and you have become, honestly, like a son to me. I have prayed my heart out for you.
First of all, there were many of us, several of us, that were desirous to see them get together. And in our own subtle and nuanced ways, we were, I won't say manipulating, but creating circumstances in which they could be together.
I thought they should have met naturally. You know, we could have arranged it, but we didn't have to let them know we were arranging it.
I'm not going to say that I'm the only one, the sole one responsible for the marriage and the happy success of Brian and Chantelle. But if you were to say that of me, I wouldn't deny it. I wouldn't argue with you. But I'll let you be the judge.
We have indisputable evidence that this marriage exists today because of Becky and myself.
Charisse had mentioned that she was trying to hook them up, that she thought they'd be good together. But Chantelle was a little skeptical.
And I told her at Bible study, I said, I know this really nice guy. But she totally ignored me. I even showed her your picture.
The glory that is Brian.
It wasn't his dashingly good looks, which he has dashingly good looks, don't get me wrong.
And his handsome, rugged, good looks with big, sexy, curly hair.
No, he kind of reminds me a little bit, just a little bit, only the good things of me.
And that curly hair is great, and that also added to the brother-in-law effect.
We were at GYC and we were talking to Chantelle.
Nathan brought Brian up, so we were talking to Chantelle about Brian, and around the corner walks Brian, just out of the blue. We had our children there who were quite young then, and I saw Brian and I looked at Levi and Laurel and I said, don't say a word. And Brian walked up and Chantelle looked quite uncomfortable, and I said, hi Brian, this is Chantelle. Chantelle, this is Brian. And that was the first time they had ever met.
And as a result of that meeting that was facilitated by Becky and myself, they are now married.
We took Brian and Chantelle backpacking in the Sierras for their first time so that they could get to know one another.
Was I putting the trip together just for the purpose of getting them together, Violetta and I? No, of course not. We were going backpacking. We wanted our friends to come. But when we knew that Chantelle was committed and that Brian was open, were we very interested in getting them both there? Absolutely.
They went on this backpack trip.
When I first invited, was it Brian that was going to come first or Chantelle? Brian. When I invited Brian to come, he was interested. But then when Chantelle decided to come, Brian began to get kind of shaky knees, sort of non-committal. Oh, I don't know if I can. The moment that he knew that Chantelle was coming, he was... Because it would have been a little strange, admittedly, if it was David and Violetta and Brian and Chantelle.
Chantelle looked quite uncomfortable.
Brian pulled a fast one, a smart one, clever. He got a hold of some young people, some really young, immature kids. This sort of softened the togetherness of the experience. And so they were able to be together, they were able to experience one another in an outdoor setting, in a social setting. Not that they hadn't up to that point, they had, but this was an extended trip. But it was really non-committal, it was really socially harmless.
And she came back talking about how wonderful he was with the kids, and how nice he was, and that she actually thought she had a crush on him.
As it turns out, she graduated and ended up in Sonora.
I was traveling down the road one day with Brian. We were talking about life, liberty, and the pursuit of ladies. And I said to him, Brian, here's someone you should consider. Chantelle. And he turned to me and he said, she's on my radar.
Chantelle called us.
Separately, of course.
And she said there's a potential guy. And I was like, that's the one.
Yeah.
I was actually probably the first person to oppose the relationship because as being one of Chantelle's best friends, I didn't think that he would be good enough for her.
I think back on that moment, and to you it might sound trivial, but to me, I realized that it's very possible that he was in a great valley of decision. He was considering moving forward or casting her aside like one casts aside a pebble. And the right friend at the right time, with the right comment, me, came alongside of him and said, Brian, it's okay, go ahead. That was the message that he got from what I said. And ever since that day, it's just been gravy.
I remember the moment that Brian said that he was interested in this special girl named Chantelle. We decided that a snowmobiling trip would be a good interview. Me of her of what she was getting into with the people in Brian's life. I said to her, I remember during our introduction, are you legally in the United States? She said that she was, but the status was a little bit tricky. I asked her if she was into Brian just for who he was or for legal status. And she said that she liked Brian because of who he was and his handsome, rugged, good looks with big, sexy, curly hair. And I was satisfied that she was into him for the right reasons.
It wasn't until the point that I realized he was a germaphobe that I was like, maybe this could be good.
From that point forward, I highly encouraged their relationship to progress in a romantic way leading up until this day.
So I thought, this would be good. After a long while. I think it was today actually that I realized it. So yeah.
So I know that they're like, oh, matchmaking, no, it's not good, blah, blah, blah. Well, I would go out on a limb and say that if there were people like myself and others who were not desirous to have them together, I'm not saying it wouldn't have happened, but it would not have happened as quickly as it did.
As the master planner that I am, I obviously orchestrated the whole thing.
So, Brian, Chantelle, I just want to let you know that you're welcome.
And this great idea that I had, I just want to thank you for finally making it yours.
I do take credit for a lot of what's taken place, especially the beginning stages of their relationship, clarifying really the reasons for interest in each other at that point.
Once again, I'm not saying that I'm the only one who should be thanked. I'm not saying that I'm the only one that a statue and a plaque should be built for. But just know that I'm happy I can do it. I'm happy and I'd do it again if I had the opportunity. God bless you guys.
So this is your indisputable evidence that Brian and Chantelle are married today because of us.
You're welcome. We love you.
Good job. We love you. Mwah.
Wait, are you recording?
But I can cut this part out.
You're gonna need to then. Okay.
I don't know. Yeah. Let's redo it.
Did nothing.
Talked to you a lot about me,
Well,
and that might have been that was before they introduced us. I had a lot of other people in your corner, other than Nathan and Becky. Videotaping us right now?
Yeah.
So we just want to thank everyone who's helped bring us together, and especially
John Tilley
for introducing us at GYC, for Jim and Betty willingly bringing me up to do a week of prayer in Oregon so we can get better acquainted, and David and Violetta for going backpacking with us on several different trips, and
Sharice and Matt and Chandra and Randy for putting the bug in my ear continuously and hearing about Brian all the time.
And I'm sure we're leaving some people out. Pam Palmer had some involvement. John Tilley, of course, hosted us many, many times and gave me a place to stay in visiting Chantelle. And I'm sure we're missing people. But most of all, we're thankful to Jesus for bringing us together.
Yeah. It was clearly his providence, and I think everybody agrees that that is true.